I'm going to give you some context first to my school because it's really key as to a very, very sort of surprising event that happened about 6 weeks ago. And in order to fully sort of grasp the context around that, you have to understand where the schools come from. So first of all, I'm the head teacher of a Roman Catholic high school in Stockport, which is a town just to the south of Manchester and within Greater Manchester in the northwest of England. We're a secondary school with about 650 students on roll from the ages of 11 through to 16. And I joined the school in September 2019 as head teacher. It's my first year of headship. So I'm going to tell you a story this morning, and I promise you that what I'm going to sort of talk you through is only dramatized by my voice. It's not dramatized by exaggeration. There is no hyperbole left, really, that could possibly be stranger than the real life that's taken place over the last sort of 8 or 9 months. So here goes. We'll start with some numbers, if you like. I am the 9th head teacher in the past 10 years, and I am the 6th head teacher in the last 5 years at this school. 8,400 is the number of miles that I drove in the first term as I commuted up and down from Cambridgeshire to Manchester, waiting for my house sale to go through. 3 is the number of children my wife was looking after while she was working full time with me away during the week. 100,000 was the budget deficit that I arrived to in September, and 22,000 is the number of emails I've processed since then. I've done 124 temporary fixed term exclusions from the school between September and March, 6 safeguarding referrals about supply teachers, 5 permanent exclusions, 4 new members of the senior leadership team, 3 chairs of governors, 2 governing boards, and then the partridge in the pear tree is that I have a school with the highest level of deprivation in the whole of Stockport, and I have 1 terrible Ofsted report which arrived in late January and placed the school into the lowest possible category, which was inadequate, requiring special measures. For quality of education, behaviour and attitudes, personal development and leadership and management at all levels, the school was labelled inadequate, and it's the second time it's been in special measures in the last 5 years. And that's quite the Ofsted report to achieve after 18 weeks as a head teacher. The worst comment from the Ofsted report ran as follows, and I'll just read this to you. The school is in a worse position now than it was at the time of the last inspection. Leaders, including governors, the diocese and the local authority, have not acted with the required urgency to address the school's significant failings. And I have a local resident who emails me on a regular basis telling me he'd like the school just to close because it causes him too many problems. By the time lockdown hit in late March, I had lost 3 members of the senior leadership team, and in the 6-week run up to Christmas, we were operating with just me and the deputy head. I added an assistant head from January, and she'd been in post for 2 weeks by the time Ofsted visited. I'd had to visit the local safeguarding unit, as I said, 6 times, and I'd also had to submit a complaint to the local authority for bullying behaviour, and actually had to kick them off site at one point and tell them never to come back. And a real low point was where I had to cling to the other side of my conference room door to hold a child on the inside whilst he tried to break out the windows using a chair, counting down the seconds until the police could arrive. So it's been quite the first year. Coronavirus hit really at the point at which the school was absolutely on its knees. And for any school, coronavirus hitting was challenging, but coronavirus hitting St Anne's left me sitting in my office sort of muttering out loud to myself, they couldn't have warmed me up on a snow day, could they? It had to be a global pandemic. So with a fractured community, with morale in our boots, and really little cash flow to work with, we had 3 days notice really to take a school online with an uncooperative community off the back of one of the worst Ofsted reports in the country. And here's what happened next, which was utterly surprising. I had spent a significant part of my last 4 schools impressing upon people the importance of IT in education, and that it wasn't just about IT for IT's sake. And when I spoke to my chair of governors to explain that I was going to be speaking at this event today, He said that one of the things I had to do was explain to you that one of the key factors in why what has happened is because of the insistence on making sure we had reasonable, it is only how it can be described, reasonable IT infrastructure in place at the school. So if knowledge is power, then knowledge of IT for coronavirus meant that this little school that had been so broken for so many years was about to get on the front foot for the first time. So we went into lockdown with an emphasis on 4 areas, 2 sort of really utterly dominated by IT and 2 that weren't. So we focused on number 1, everyone has a smartphone. All the staff want the school to be better. All the staff can learn. We didn't patronize. We were honest. We told people they had to step up because there was no choice, and that we knew that what we were asking of people was going to be utterly unreasonable in terms of working hours and things like that. When I was working from Cambridgeshire last year and finishing off in my previous role, I implemented sort of a little known app in education, which people may have heard of now, called Microsoft Teams. It seems to be doing the rounds. And we'd used it off and on for a bit. We'd made sure that everyone's accounts were set up, but it hadn't really taken off as people hadn't seen a need for it. So I wonder if you can see where that part's going. 2, we knew we had to communicate with our community better and faster than any other school. And I don't just mean any other school in Stockport, I mean any other school in the country. We had to have absolute ambition, and we couldn't think locally, and we couldn't think good enough. So we'd had this massive push on social media through from September. And this was really where it was going to pay off. The 3rd one was an insistence that we spoke absolutely honestly to everyone. Sort of take the anti-politician route. If the news is bad, we say that it's bad. If it's good, we don't gloat. We state the positives. We say how we can still do better. And we insisted on doing this with everyone, with staff, with parents, carers, students. We found a voice, and we sort of communicated in that consistently and relentlessly. And then the last one was we knew we had to go at 100 miles per hour. We had to sort of explain to our families that this was one of those time periods where you want to be able to say, I was there, you know, and I stepped up at this point in time, because these are children at stake. This was about people being fed. This is about people being educated. This is about people losing jobs. This was about people potentially being abused at home. We had to do everything we possibly could to assist our community. So what we did was, in 3 days, we took a school online. Every classroom had a virtual classroom. We communicated 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day through social media with our families. We were sending out key links by text message to them, constantly pointing them to social media. We gathered our data on key worker and vulnerable families. We sent out online surveys to work out who was going to be attending school, who wasn't. We wrote protocols for online learning. We bought new smartphones for SLT. We bought burner phones for pastoral staff. And we worked from early morning till very late night to try to get a school that was already facing so many difficulties ready for lockdown. And then the oddest thing started to happen, and it's happened really quickly, if that makes any sense. We started to receive thank yous. I was expecting complaints that what we were doing wasn't good enough, because that's where the school had always been. It had always been the school that hadn't been good enough. We got emails that said, thank you for the call, checking we were okay. Thank you for getting us online. Thank you for looking after my child, because I'm a nurse and I've got to go to work. And this sort of, it spurred us on, it kept us going. I kept waiting for complaints, and they didn't come. One evening, after sort of the national free school meals food voucher debacle, I had a brainwave and remembered that one of my heads of year, her boyfriend ran a restaurant, and he'd adapted his business to high-end food parcel delivery for those who wanted to eat out whilst at home. So I called him. I want to mention his name. His name is Michael Gibelli, and he deserves a mention here, because what he did for our school was he did these huge high-end food parcels, and he did them at a knockdown price for us. And he delivered them in refrigerated vans for our community. So we fed families who couldn't afford to eat, who couldn't get an online food delivery slot because they couldn't be found for love nor money. We got a message from one single parent nurse who was working in ICU saying, thank you so much. I haven't been able to get to the shops because I'm so tired. So we spent £10,000 of our hospitality budget because we knew we weren't going to be opening anytime soon, and there were people more deserving. We got a month into lockdown, and I'd received one complaint by that point in time, but it wasn't really a complaint. I've had 5 complaints that aren't really complaints in total over this time. All the complaints were topped and tailed with, thank you so much for what you're doing. Could you please stop setting so much work for my child to do at home? They're struggling to keep up. Now, those are the sorts of complaints that I can live with as a head teacher. But the single most surprising event off the back of everything that I've told you was yet to come. So I've got my new assistant head teacher, Sarah Hibbert, joined the school in January. And she said, we have to do one of these videos that's going around. Lots of schools are doing them. It's teachers and staff holding up pictures or saying hello or just saying we miss you to our students and everything like that. And I thought, I don't want to jump on the same bandwagon as everyone else, but one of the nice things about employing new talented people is they just nag you till they get their own way. So she kept nagging at me, and I said, okay, if you want to do it, you do. You put the video together, we'll put it out there for our community. So she pieced it together, and it was lots of different messages and things like that. It's just saying, we miss you. We're hoping to welcome you back soon. And then here's the really strange thing. So this school that had just been sort of resented for a really long time, when we put posts out on social media, typically they'll get a reach of about maybe 100 to 150. We've only got 650 students at the school. I put the video online, and over the course of the next 24 hours, it hit a reach of just over 8,000. And I thought, okay, this is quite unusual for a school. The most unusual thing was about 4 days later, an email dropped in my inbox on a Friday morning, and I'm going to read it to you now. And I'm going to try not to get upset at the same time. It was from a parent of a child in year 7, and it read as follows. Dear Mr. Wright, I hope this email finds you well, and you and your family are coping with these very strange times. Many of the homeschooling parents were so moved by the video you sent last week that we wanted to do a reply, and I hope you and your staff enjoy it. And what I'm going to try and do is put that video up on your screens now.
Can everyone see this? Is this the video, Daniel?
Yeah,
okay,
that's the
perfect.
video.
Now how do I, sorry.
If you make that full screen, yeah.
Can you hear that?
Yep.
Wonderful. I'm hoping you could all hear that. Beautiful video. Let me just, back to you, Daniel. If you'd like to just round off.
That's the end of my little story that I wanted to share with you this morning. A school that we should never have received that. I'm so proud that we did. And I hope that's given you a little bit of an insight into the way that a really, really unusual school has operated over the course of lockdown. It's been a really tough year, but to get that through made the whole thing worthwhile.